Hey everybody, it's Infinity Break, coming at you today with a little bit of a different video. Today I wanted to kind of show off something that I found very interesting. If you guys don't know, I've played every single main series title Elder Scrolls game that has been released to this date, and I'm going to play Elder Scrolls 6, but it is obviously not out yet. I have played everything from Arena to Skyrim, I've played Daggerfall, Morrowind, and Oblivion, and I play them all a pretty good amount, and I love the Elder Scrolls a lot, and I've definitely seen a lot of change over the last, I suppose you could say 25 years it's been out. Today I kind of wanted to showcase a little bit of that change, just with the concept of showing you a video dedicated to the idea of how the combat in the Elder Scrolls series has evolved with each title that has been released. Everything from Arena to Daggerfall to Morrowind to Oblivion to Skyrim. We're going to show you exactly how this combat has changed, and this does not include magic, just merely the weapon combat. It's actually a very interesting, evolution, and I'm actually interested in showing you the magic evolution soon, but without further ado and wasting any more of your time, let's get into it, shall we? Now the first up is Arena. Now these are only going to be going over the combat from the main series title games. This means only Arena to Skyrim, no Elder Scrolls Online, no Blades, no Redguard, no nothing like that. We're just going to be going over the main series titles. So as you can see, the combat for Arena is actually pretty interesting and different. It obviously runs on the DOSBox engine, or that's at least what I've been told that it is. I have no idea what the official name for the engine was, but it does run on DOSBox, and as you can tell, it's a little bit clunkier, but it's definitely interesting. Believe it or not, this combat was actually praised when it first came out for being extremely interesting and realistic. The way the combat controls, it's actually really interesting and really creative. You actually have to take your mouse and you have to hold down the left trigger or the left mouse button, and then you have to scroll in whichever direction that you actually want the blade to go. And these different attacks and different ways of swinging the weapon have a different chance of actually hitting the target. You have a higher chance of just doing, I believe, a regular attack, and also stabbing and such have a different way of attacking, but also produce different types of damage. So it's extremely interesting, and though it doesn't have the graphics and, the newest engine to show off how intuitive it actually is, it is still an interesting way of swinging your weapon around in an Elder Scrolls game. The next one we're going to be looking at is Daggerfall. Now, Daggerfall's controls in general haven't really changed, at least from Arena. We're still running on the DOSBox engine, and it's still, relatively clunky, but it's a lot smoother this time around, and in my opinion, the animations have been cleaned up with newer weapon models, and everything seems to be running a little bit better. This is just a simple, I suppose you could say, polish upon the Arena graphics and controls and everything else, so Daggerfall is kind of the improved version of Arena, and most people, popularity-wise, seem to agree. So the combat hasn't changed much fundamentally. You still swing your weapon in different directions, which cause a different amount of chances for success as of the dice roll combat, and honestly it just kind of looks really nice. The way you control it is interesting, and I definitely have to praise Bethesda, for when it first came out it was probably one of the most intuitive and different ways to fight in a video game. Now after a couple spin-offs like Redguard and Battlespire, we move on into a new game that everybody loves, Morrowind. Now if you guys want my opinion, the combat, and this is probably agreed upon within the community that follows Morrowind to this day, is probably one of the clunkiest and messiest ways to fight within the Elder Scrolls games. I am not kidding. The combat in this game is very janky, though it doesn't change a lot fundamentally from Daggerfall and Arena. The way that the combat works is a simple click of the mouse means you swing your weapon. Now depending upon your skill with that weapon, you can perform different attacks, and those different attacks have a different chance of actually hitting your target. Now, Morrowind is weird because it is actually moving a dice roll combat into a three-dimensional space, which is extremely jarring and very difficult, and in my opinion is just doesn't work. It's extremely awkward and clunky, like I said, and your actual chances of hitting a target as well as killing them within the first, I suppose you could say, a couple minutes of playing the game are extremely difficult. There are people that have been known to just simply die to rats and hate rats at the very beginning of the game. And when you can't kill a rat, which is typically one of the first enemies that you will fight in almost all of the Elder Scrolls games to this date, it is pretty bad. So the Morrowind combat system is not exactly the most impressive, but I can see exactly what Bethesda was going for when they made it, as it is simply a dice roll combat, which is what the Elder Scrolls series had been doing up to this point, but it has been moved into a three-dimensional space, meaning when they move on to their next title, they would definitely have to revamp and create something new, which is what they did with Oblivion. Now Oblivion's combat system is the first, different style of combat that we've seen within the Elder Scrolls series. Moving into a three-dimensional space from Morrowind was a bad idea to have dice roll combat, which means you have a chance of hitting your target, even though you're right in front of them. It worked when you were in Arena and Daggerfall, but it definitely does not work when you move into a three-dimensional space like Morrowind, or even Oblivion. So in Oblivion, they decided to revamp the combat so that it was no longer a chance of hitting your target, but just simply, if you hit your target or not. The way that it works is that your weapon just simply collides with the enemy, as it should, and you do a specific amount of damage depending upon your skill, and whether or not you hit the target in the right spot or hit them in the shield or not. It's actually interesting to note that shields, for the first time in the entire series, have actually been used like real shields. For those of you who don't know, shields were simply an armor addition that was added on through a lot of the different Elder Scrolls games. Morrowind actually gave you a real use to your shield, as you had a chance of blocking your opponent whenever your character felt like it, but it never actually seemed to work like a real shield. You never saw your character block anything. You never had a chance to really block anything. And for this, for the first time in the entire Elder Scrolls series, you can actually either block with your weapon, or you could block with a shield. And it was actually pretty cool, as for the first time ever, it gave a sense of strategy to the combat. Instead of just randomly attacking your opponent in the hopes that your hits would actually hit them, you actually had a time when they would hit you, block the attack, and then hit them while they were staggering, or get behind their shield in the first place and hit them from behind, as it would actually work that way. The enemy would also try to do the same, as I've noticed that sometimes the combat would revolve around the enemy trying to get behind me and hit me and stagger me as much as possible. These different mechanics made the combat a little bit more intelligent in my opinion, because before it all relayed down to numbers. Now it relies on you, the player, to actually recognize when you need to block, when you need to attack, when to keep your back guarded, and when to make sure to keep your eye on the opponent. This, in my opinion, after analyzing it, makes it probably the most advanced, combat within all of the Elder Scrolls series at this point, at least until we got to Skyrim. See, most people like to make fun of Skyrim for being too simple, too casualized, but I think the combat within the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim is probably some of the most advanced combat and most fluid combat in the entirety of the Elder Scrolls. Moving around and attacking people with a chance of hitting the opponent was kind of jarring, even back in Arena. It made combat a little bit more difficult, even though the opponent did have a chance of hitting you. Typically, what would happen if the enemy was too high of a level, they would just end up killing you anyway, regardless of how many times you hit them. Now, within the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, you actually have a chance, like I said, within Oblivion, to really have an interesting and strategic combat when it comes to most enemies. Unless, of course, you just kill them in one hit, in which case it's not very strategic, but it does kind of look like the same thing. But then when you compare it back to Arena, where you're just sitting in front of an opponent, swinging your weapon in different directions, there really isn't that big of a change. But what Skyrim does is it manages to take the already polished version of the Oblivion combat that seems so very intricate and very interesting and advanced, and it takes it a little bit further by adding a couple more different things to it. If you guys didn't know, in Oblivion, you actually could unlock a dodge roll ability if you upgraded your acrobatic skill enough. It's actually really cool, as you just simply block and then jump in whatever direction you wish to roll. It's pretty cool, and I honestly didn't even know about it until about a couple days ago, and I've owned the game and played it for over 10 years now, and I'm very surprised that I didn't know this. The concept behind this, though, is actually kind of interesting because it carries over into Skyrim through the ability to unlock perks, which will give you these different abilities. There's actually a running attack ability, which gives you a critical strike on your opponent whenever you attack them while running and sprinting at them and holding down the power attack button. I like it a lot, and it gives your character a really cool ability to mix up combat, kinda. Add this along with the ability to basically shield bash and interrupt the shield bash, or interrupt the power attack with those abilities such as shield bashing. It actually does add a couple more things to the combat that makes combat a little bit more faster and a little bit more fluid, which is something I really like when it comes to Skyrim. Say what you want about Skyrim being casualized, I think its gameplay and its very simplistic design, as well as actually pretty cool and interesting world, actually makes it probably one of the most memorable Elder Scrolls games, as it has sold probably the most copies of any Elder Scrolls game to this date. But yes, that is the difference between all of the Elder Scrolls games and their evolution of combat to this day. And I didn't go over a lot of these spin-off titles, mostly because they're just spin-off titles. Blades has a very interesting combat system that works back to the original Elder Scrolls Arena and Daggerfall. But besides that, I think the combat such as the one in Redguard was just a clone of the Lara Croft Tomb Raider series, which is kind of what it was trying to be, honestly. And yes, I know I didn't go over the magic system, but the magic system has evolved in its own way over the last couple entries in the franchise. so it's going to get its own video in the future. But for now, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and enjoyed the evolution of the combat within the Elder Scrolls series. If you guys like this, stick around, subscribe, like the video if you want. And if you guys want to see more videos like this or have any recommendations for video topics or theories or other mods you want me to review, go ahead and leave a comment. Go and hit me up through my Discord, my Twitter, or even email me an email at my email address down in the description. Either way, this is going to be the end of this video. This has been Infinity Break, reminding you all to say it with me now. Play well, eat well, and of course live well, friends. Hope you guys go out there and strive to break infinity. Hope you guys have a nice day, night, evening, wherever and whenever you're at. Take it easy, guys. I'll see you guys in the next video.